Have you ever thought about this? Cameras never lie. They don't sugarcoat, they don't dramatize, they just record what's in front of them. And sometimes, that's way scarier than any horror movie. Because unlike a film, there's no director, no special effects, no actors. Just real life, unfolding in the corner of a room when no one is supposed to be watching. This first story is about a guy who set up a small hidden camera in his bedroom for the most normal reason ever. He wanted to see what his cat did while he was at work. That's it. Nothing spooky, nothing strange, just a curious pet owner trying to catch some funny moments. He imagined clips of his cat jumping onto the bed, maybe knocking over a lamp or chasing invisible shadows in the air. You know, typical cat chaos. And at first, that's exactly what the camera recorded. The cat wandered around, scratched at the blanket, climbed onto the shelves, and even stared at the lens a few times with glowing eyes. Harmless, ordinary, and a little funny. But then, the recordings started to change. What began as lighthearted curiosity slowly turned into something disturbing. One night, around 2 a.m., the camera picked up movement. The guy wasn't home, so the room should have been empty except for the cat. The cat was curled up at the foot of the bed, completely still, when suddenly the door to the bedroom began to open, slowly, carefully. The sound wasn't loud, but in the quiet of the night, it was sharp enough to make you feel uneasy. At first, he thought maybe it was just a draft of air, maybe the wind pushed it. But that theory fell apart quickly. The windows were sealed shut. The air in the room was still, and that door, it was heavy, not something that would swing open without force. The camera kept rolling. The cat lifted its head, ears pointed straight at the door, its body frozen in place. Animals notice things we don't, and this cat looked tense. In the dim glow from the hallway, just enough light spilled into the room to reveal something standing in the doorway. A shadow. Tall. Still. Silent. The kind of presence that makes your stomach drop the second you realize it's there. It didn't move forward. It didn't retreat. It just stood there, half in the hall and half in the bedroom, as if it was deciding whether or not to step inside. Seconds stretched into what felt like minutes. The figure never shifted, never breathed, never blinked. It was like watching a paused video. But the camera was recording in real time. The most unsettling detail? The cat refused to move. Usually cats react fast. They hiss, they jump, they run. But this cat didn't do any of that. It just sat there, staring at the door, its body rigid like it was waiting for something to happen. The guy later said the expression on his cat's face was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Wide eyes, pupils dilated, frozen in complete focus. And then, nothing. After a while, the door slowly closed again. The shadow faded back into the hallway, swallowed by the darkness. The room went still. The cat curled back into its spot, but you could tell it wasn't fully relaxed. When the guy watched the footage the next morning, his stomach turned. There was no mistaking it. Something had opened that door. Something had been standing there, watching. He replayed the video over and over, hoping to find a logical explanation, some kind of trick of the light. But each time, it looked the same. A figure, a presence, silent and deliberate. Now let me ask you, after seeing that with your own eyes, would you ever be able to sleep peacefully in that room again? Would you be able to close your eyes, knowing that something or someone might be standing just beyond the door, waiting? Yeah, me neither.
Okay, this next one will make you think twice about living alone. Imagine moving into your very first apartment. It's small, sure, but it's yours. A fresh start in the middle of the city. The walls still smell like new paint, the kitchen feels untouched, and the silence at night almost feels comforting. For a young woman who had just settled into this place, it felt like the beginning of independence. Because she often worked late shifts, she decided to set up a small hidden camera in her living room. Nothing fancy, just a cheap little device that connected to her phone. The goal was simple: peace of mind. If anything strange ever happened, she'd know. And for the first 2 nights, the camera captured exactly what you'd expect. Stillness, quiet, just a cozy, empty apartment. But on the 3rd night, everything changed. When she opened the camera footage the next morning, her stomach sank. At first, it looked like any normal recording. The living room was dark, with only the faint glow of the city lights coming through the curtains. But then, out of nowhere, there he was. A man. Not a neighbor she recognized, not a visitor she had invited. Just a complete stranger, standing inside her apartment as if he belonged there. Here's the part that makes this story so unsettling. There were no signs of a break-in. The front door wasn't damaged, the lock wasn't forced, and the windows were all closed. Nothing was broken. It was as if he had simply walked right in. Calm, casual, completely undisturbed. He strolled into the kitchen like he had done it 100 times before. He opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, and poured himself a drink. No rush, no fear of being caught. He leaned on the counter, took a sip, and then wandered over to her couch. He sat down, crossed his legs, turned on the TV with the remote that was right there on the table. The volume was low, but you could see the flickering light from the screen reflecting off his face. And he sat there for nearly an hour, not fidgeting, not nervous, just relaxed, like this was his home. Then came the part that sent a chill down her spine. After sitting in the living room for what felt like forever, he stood up, stretched, and calmly walked down the hallway, straight toward her bedroom. The camera in the living room couldn't see what happened after that, but a few minutes later, he came back out. No panic, no rush. He simply walked out the same way he came in, leaving no evidence that he had ever been there. The next morning, when she checked the footage, she froze. Imagine realizing that while you were asleep in your own bed, a stranger was in the next room, watching TV, drinking from her fridge, and then stepping into her bedroom. Think about that. She was unconscious, completely unaware, while someone she had never seen before wandered freely through her apartment. The questions that followed were even worse than the footage itself. How did he get in if nothing was broken? Did he have a copy of her key? Was he someone who had been there before, maybe even more than once? And perhaps the scariest thought of all, was this the first time, or just the first time she caught him on camera?
This next story doesn't take place at home. It's from someone's job. Picture this, a massive old warehouse, the kind with endless hallways, flickering lights, and stacks of boxes that look like they haven't been touched in years. During the day, it's busy enough. Trucks come in, workers move pallets around, machines hum in the background. But at night, it's a completely different place. Silent, cold, the kind of quiet that makes you second-guess every sound you hear. One of the night security guards had worked there for years. He knew the building better than anyone else. Every squeaky door, every drafty corner, every creak in the floors. Normally, his shift was uneventful. Walking the halls, checking doors, staring at the monitors. Boring, sure, but safe. Until workers started complaining. They swore they heard footsteps echoing in the back corridors when no one was there. Others said they'd seen shadows moving across the far end of the hallway. Most people chalked it up to nerves or maybe just rats and stray cats knocking things over. Nothing worth worrying about. Still, the guard decided to install a few extra cameras just to settle the rumors once and for all. For weeks, nothing unusual happened. The footage showed exactly what you would expect. Dust floating through the air, the occasional rodent darting across the floor, boxes toppling from weak stacks. Totally normal. But then came the night that changed everything. Around 3 a.m., one of the cameras flickered. On the screen, you could clearly see someone in the back corridor. At first glance, it looked like a woman. Pale skin, long, dark hair hanging damply over her shoulders, and her clothes, a white dress that looked heavy, clinging to her as if it was soaked, dripping like she had just climbed out of water. She moved slowly, deliberately, each step echoing in the long hallway. The guard jumped out of his chair and sprinted down the hall, thinking maybe this was a trespasser, someone who had broken in. His flashlight cut through the darkness as he turned the corner into the corridor. Empty. Just concrete floors, stacked boxes, and silence. No footprints. No wet marks, no trace of anyone ever being there. Confused, he rushed back to the monitors and rewound the footage, and that's when the details made his stomach drop. Frame by frame, he noticed something impossible. The woman's feet never actually touched the ground. She wasn't walking at all. She was gliding, hovering just a few inches above the floor, moving smoothly in a way no human ever could. Now you might say it was a glitch, a trick of the light, maybe even a camera error. But this guard wasn't new. He'd worked there for over a decade, long enough to know every quirk of that security system. He had seen bad footage before, grainy images, distorted shapes, technical hiccups. But this was crystal clear. There was no blur, no glitching pixels, just the image of a woman, silently gliding through the hall in that dripping white dress. The strangest part? The cameras in that section of the warehouse never recorded her leaving. 1 second she was there, moving slowly toward the end of the hall. The next second, gone. No door opening, no corner to turn, just vanished. The guard still talks about that night with a chill in his voice. He swears he doesn't scare easily. 10 years in an empty warehouse will do that to you. But that footage, that's the one thing he'll never forget. Because even now, years later, no one can explain who
or what that woman really was. And every time he walks those back halls on his rounds, he can't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, she's still there, waiting. You ever notice how stories from hidden cameras or CCTV feel way creepier than any scripted horror film? It's because deep down, our brains know it's real. There are no actors trying to sell you a performance, no special effects team creating jump scares. It's just raw footage, and that's what makes it so chilling. Sometimes reality is way more brutal than fiction. Think about it. You install a camera for the most harmless reasons. Maybe you just want to see what your dog does while you're at work. Maybe you're living alone for the first time and you want to feel safe. Or maybe it's part of your job, like security guards watching empty hallways late at night. You expect normal, boring footage. An empty room, your pet napping, maybe a random car passing by outside. But instead of peace of mind, what you get is undeniable proof that you are not alone. And that's the moment when everything changes. Because once a camera shows you something you can't explain, you can't take it back. You can't rewind life and pretend it didn't happen. It's burned into your memory, and every time you walk into that same room or down that same hallway, you'll feel it in the back of your mind, the thought that someone or something was there with you. And the worst part? You didn't even notice it in real time. The camera did. That's what makes these stories hit different. Imagine checking your phone during a lunch break and seeing your camera app open. Instead of your cat being silly or your apartment looking empty, you catch something that shouldn't be there. A shadow moving when no one's home, a door creaking open on its own, or worse, someone, a total stranger, walking through your space like they belong there. You'd freeze, your heart would drop, because that's not a movie scene you can laugh off. That's your life, your space, your reality. And here's the thing. Technology was supposed to make us feel safer. Cameras are installed to protect us, to reassure us. But sometimes they end up showing us things we were never meant to see. Little cracks in reality. Glimpses of the unknown. Proof that, even in the safety of your own home or workplace, you're never really as alone as you think. So, after hearing these stories, let me ask you again. Would you actually feel safer with a hidden camera? Or would it just keep you up at night? Because here's the tricky part. Cameras were made to protect us, to give us a sense of control. But sometimes, instead of peace, they hand us the kind of truth we were never ready to face. Think about it. It's comforting to say, at least I'll know what's happening when I'm not around. But what happens when you finally see it? What happens when that door moves, even though no one touched it? What happens when a stranger shows up on your footage smiling like they've been there before? The camera doesn't lie. It doesn't care about your comfort. It just records. And sometimes that's way scarier than ignorance. Because here's the reality. Whatever a camera captures, that's real. Whether it's a burglar sneaking into your space, a stalker who knows your routine a little too well, or something beyond explanation drifting across the screen, it's undeniable. It's proof. And proof? Proof can change your entire view of the world. Proof makes you question what's safe and what's not. Proof makes the shadows in your hallway look different. And once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. That's the weight of it. And maybe that's the scariest part. Not the ghostly figure, not the stranger in the dark, but the simple fact that now you know. You know your walls don't protect you the way you thought they did. You know your comfort can be shattered in an instant. You know that something or someone was there, and you missed it. So ask yourself, do you really want to know what's happening when you're not watching? Or is ignorance the last shred of comfort we have left? All right, guys, that's it for today's disturbing hidden camera stories. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I drop new true horror stories every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss them. And remember, if you've got your own creepy experience, something weird, unsettling, or straight up terrifying, send it to the email in the description. Who knows, your story might be the next one we share. Stay safe out there, and watch what your cameras are recording, because sometimes the truth is scarier than nightmares.